Hello, Professor Adler for Biology 010. This is my submission for my final on how the Tibetan people adapt better in the higher elevation. This is part 1. So in my studies, I found that the Tibetan people have, with about 100 generations, they have adapted to be in higher elevation. Now they were in comparison to the Han people that were in lower elevation. And so how they did this was they obviously took DNA tests and they weighed the babies, and they've done different studies on this. Now the first thing that caught my eye was the mortality rate of the babies. When the Han people who are in the lower elevation went up to go live with the Tibetan people, they had a higher death rate. So they were about like 200 babies that would die. I'm not sure if it was like a year but it was about 200 babies that would die. And for the Tibetan people, it was about 100 babies that would die. And the death was around just before the babies were born to around birth, so sometimes a little bit after too. And if you notice, it's 2 times higher with the Han people and with the Tibetan people. Now, one reason why they chose the Han people is because the Han people were close relatives of the Tibetan people. They're the closest relatives of them. And roughly about 3,000 years ago, they did split off, and the Tibetan people went to a higher elevation, and then the Han people stayed at the lower elevation. Now, one of the adaptations that they have seen is when they took DNA tests, their DNA is elongated, or it's a little bit longer. Now, this is important because this helps elevate the amount of blood that they pump in their body. Now, the more red blood cells you produce, the more it's easier to help you breathe in a higher elevation. The less you have, the more you're going to struggle. So the body tends to have these little symptoms where you begin to hyperventilate, you get to breathe harder, you get to try to take in more oxygen, and it's a response to the body, because the body wants to stay in homeostasis. So it wants to stay regular, it wants to stay regulated to normal how it normally is on the inside. So when there's elevation change, well, that's a response. So the body responds in that way. Now the Tibetan people, not only is their like DNA a little bit different, they also got these the genotypes GG, and also the babies weigh more on average as well. You see the weight of the Tibetan people, the babies, a little bit higher, and that can play a role in how they're surviving. And also too, you also see, not just in the Tibetan people, as I was doing my studies, people as a whole that were born in a higher elevation, they have better ways to get oxygen to their body and their tissue. And then you also even see this kind of play in sports, where you have Mexicans who are better at boxing. Why? Because it's easier for them to produce and get more oxygen in their lungs, more in their body, and they have a better recovery process. So you do see it play out in roles. Also, people that live in a higher elevation, they tend to have more exercise, they tend to be more active. And even being in a higher elevation also affects what kind of diseases and things of that nature. So like they have a lower heart diseases, they have diabetes, not really an issue. So it comes with more than only just a lifestyle. There's a whole process about it. So from affecting to their lifestyle to the DNA, the being in higher elevation has caused these people, Tibetans, to evolve differently. Just a little minor change, but a very effective way to live in higher elevation. Whereas us, if we were to go up there, our blood can get thicker. We're too high because there's too much red blood cells. Well, that's all I have for you today, Dr. Adler. Thank you for this, and it was a wonderful class, and I enjoyed it. Bye.